Good afternoon and welcome to the Thursday Thought for this week. Well, I don't know about you, but there are times when I just have a difficult time believing. Now, no, I'm not talking about belief in Santa Claus. I'm talking about believing in a loving and merciful God who desires the best for me and is constantly working in 1,000 ways on my behalf. Oh, I know it intellectually. It's just that it becomes difficult to keep that belief in my innermost being that many would call my heart. Just like you, there are times in my life when things just don't go well for me. It's in those times that I tend to get in a kind of a downward funk and begin to question everything, even those things that I've known and believed for decades, especially the things of God. Where is this God who loves me and wants the best for me? Has he completely abandoned me in my time of trial and need? Does he care? Is he even there? And I sometimes even fall into times like David of the Old Testament when things weren't going well for him either. He wrote poetry a lot of times to express his feelings. Some of that poetry has been preserved for us in the Psalms in the Bible. Here are a couple of examples of David crying out for relief, wondering where God is in all of his affliction. And I'm quoting the Psalms here. Why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? I say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why must I go about mourning, oppressed by the enemy? My bones suffer mortal agony as my foes taunt me, saying to me all day long, where is your God? Why, my soul, are you downcast? Why so disturbed within me? Unquote. Well, if you've ever felt this way, you certainly aren't alone. These times have been part of the lives of humans for thousands of years. We find ourselves questioning long-held beliefs about life, living, God, relationships, and even beliefs about ourselves and our own lives. One of my dear friends, Trina, penned these words some years ago following her decision to come clean, to get into recovery, and to begin a new life. Now, she'd grown up in a godly household, but she took some wrong turns in life. In a vacant house on North Broadway in Wichita some years ago, she woke up one day out of a stupor and decided that she'd had enough of the kind of life that she'd been living. She got herself into recovery, came clean, got the help she needed. She now has her family back. She's married to the man she loves, and she's really a shining example of what God can do in the lives of those who call on him. Nevertheless, her recovery didn't come without pain or doubt. She penned these words in addressing how she felt during some of those darker days, and I quote her here. I would be lying if I didn't say there were days I had a hard time believing. There were days I cried that turned into weeks of grieving. Many mornings waking up knowing of his mercy being new, but in my heart misplacing this truth with my painful feelings. But I can honestly say that I never lost hope in God's will. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I had tasted and seen that he was good before a single material blessing. So I had hope on even the darkest days. And I also remembered a quote by John Piper that I had heard when I first was saved. God is always doing 10,000 things in your life, Piper said, and you may be aware of 3 of them. So even through the push and pull of anger and thankfulness, grief and joy, no sight and seeing, patience and anxiety, prayers and distance, spirit and flesh, being tossed by the wind to remembering to whom I belong. His goodness prevails always. There is no power in the universe that can stop God from fulfilling his totally good plans for you. Unquote. She's right, you know. It doesn't take material blessings for you to know that God is good. And you really don't have the foggiest clue of all the things that God's doing in your life that are molding you into someone who is looking more and more like Jesus every day. We have such a limited understanding of the greatness of God, of the work of God in our lives. We only dimly recall the past, and the future is unknown to us. But God, who knows it all, always works for our good, always loves us, always is merciful, always is good. Trina, I hear you. Even in the darkest times of life, God's goodness prevails. Always. Blessings.